Over the next 6 weeks, more than 200,000 American families will be shattered by the news of
the opioid crisis is an emergency, and I'm saying officially right now, it is an emergency. It's a national emergency. We're going to spend a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of money on the opioid crisis. The opioid.
Okay. That was the Great Pumpkin himself back in August 10th from his golfing resort in Bedminster, New Jersey, talking about that. And he orders public health emergency for opioids, a partial measure to fighting drug epidemic. Let me just go ahead and read this for you. President Cheeto will order his health secretary to declare the opioid crisis a public health emergency Thursday, but will stop short of declaring a more sweeping state of national emergency. His aide said. In an address from the White House, 45 will also try to rally the nation to a growing epidemic that's claimed over 64,000 American lives last year and will advocate for a sustained national effort to end the addiction crisis. Personally, I hope it keeps going because the less caucus apes, the better. Anyway, drug demand and opioid misuse is the crisis next door. This is coming from the Kraken Ann Conway, which we all know is look like she's been in the ice bucket challenge once too many times. This is no longer someone else's co-worker, someone else's community, someone else's kid. Drug use knows no geographic boundaries or demographic differences. Oh really, you dumb bitch. Then explain during the 60s and early 70s of how the CIA, along with the FBI and drug lords from Colombia, how they flooded a lot of the black communities with cocaine and stuff just to go ahead to keep from reproduction. See, it wasn't no drug problem. It's the same old song. It wasn't no drug problem when Latavia and JoJo and Ray them were getting fucked up over it or whatever. But soon as Brad and Jennifer and and Johnny them start getting OD'd, oh, we got an epidemic, we got a crisis. It's the same thing. This dumb bitch, she needs to go back and re-audition for the new Kraken and Clash of the fucking Titans. Ugh. So let me see. So to respond to that crisis, 45 will sign a presidential memorandum ordering Acting Secretary of Health and Human Services Eric Hargan to waive regulations and give states more flexibility in how they use federal funds, said 4 senior officials responsible for crafting the administration's new opioid policy. The officials previewed the action in USA Today on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to speak ahead of the president's announcement. 45 first promised to declare a national emergency to combat the crisis back on August 10th and repeated that pledge just last week. Speaking to reporters on the South Lawn of the White House, Trump touted a quote-unquote big meeting on opioids and said a national emergency gives us power to do things you can't do right now. But there's a legal distinction between a public health emergency, which the Secretary of Health can declare under the Public Health Services Act, and a presidential emergency under the Stafford Act or the National Emergencies Act. The latter is what the president's own opioid commissions recommended in July. Declaring a state of national emergency would give the president even more power to waive privacy laws and Medicaid regulations. James Hodge, who's a law professor at Arizona State University, said a dual declaration of emergencies by both the president and the health secretary will give the administrations more tools to fight the epidemic, but that any emergency will be a welcome response to the crisis. Trump's decision, well, I should say 45, to go with a more measured response, a public health emergency, demonstrates the complexity of an opioid crisis that continues to grow through an ever-evolving cycle of addiction, from prescription pain pills to illegal heroin to the lethal fentanyl, which is used for tranquilize elephants. But the legal powers Trump is invoking were designed for short-term emergencies like disaster and infectious disease. By law, a public health emergency can only last 90 days, but can be renewed any number of times. There's 13 localized public health emergencies already in effect for Hurricanes Harvey, Irma, Maria, and Nate. Then you got the California wildfires. The opioid action will be the first public health emergency with a nationwide scope since a year-long emergency to prepare for the H1N1 influenza virus in 2009, flu virus in 2009-2010. Now, here's the chart right here. As myself, Lisa Cabrera, Torian Rain, Nicole's View, as we all said, you can screenshot this for yourself. 1999, the deaths were like over 8,000. Go down to 2015, it reaches over 30, close to 3391, over 33,000. Which that's a 311% increase annually. And who the demographic, the ones who's getting fucked up over the opioid epidemic, who overdose on heroin? White people. Shoot. But this dumb bitch killing Kraken Ann Conway, let's just call it that because she looked like the Kraken from Clash of the Titans. Kraken Ann Conway said, now it affects different people, different demographics. It's a big problem there, but why she wasn't saying that when we had a cocaine epidemic going on down here? But I guess, you can't fix stupid. Let me continue. Thursday's designation, which gives the administration specific powers to marshal federal, state, and private resources. Those emergency powers would include allow patients to get medically assisted treatment for opioid addiction through telemedicine. Current law generally requires in-person visits from doctors to prescribe controlled substance. But for people in rural areas like Appalachia, that is the Appalachian Mountains. Yeah, that's like off the Carolinas and stuff like that. West Virginia, all through there. That's where the opioid crisis has taken a particular heavy toll. Qualified doctors can often be hours away. That's like if you got a Samsung, got a Galaxy, and you got Samsung Health, they even got a thing on there or a feature on there where you could make an appointment with doctors from your phone. Something. Give federal and state governments more flexibility in hiring substance abuse specialists temporarily, and shift federal grant programs for people with HIV/AIDS to get substance abuse treatment. What? That one there, let me get this straight. Give federal and state governments more flexibility in hiring substance abuse specialists temporarily, and shift federal grant programs for people with HIV/AIDS to get substance abuse treatment. Oh, so treating the opioid epidemic is more importantly than treating people who has the HIV/AIDS virus, which, by the way, is made in a made in a government lab anyway, created by the people for population control for a certain demographic, particularly us, Hispanics, transsexuals, and transgenders, and homosexuals. So, y'all, people like that, particularly like who has the virus, and this ain't no pick, no shot, pain shot, but people that's in that LGBT community, you better be paying attention to this, and particularly in our community and everything like this as well. I think our general feeling is that that's a good step, but it's a temporary step and it's a transitional step, said Jim Bloomstock, who's the chief of health security for the Association of State and Territorial Health Officials. Make dislocated workers grants available to people with opioid addiction through the Department of Labor. Those grants are usually available to people put out of work by a natural disaster. But a public health emergency could also make those grants available to treat the people in treatment. Labor Secretary Alexander Acosta told the Opioid Commission last week that pain and addiction sidelined millions of American workers. Of men aged 25 to 54 not in workforce, 44% of them had taken a painkiller in the last day, according to the Council of Economic Advisors. Tap the Public Health Emergency Fund, a special fund that gives HHS maximum flexibility in a health crisis. However, that fund has just $57,000 in it, said Bill Hall, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Health. The city of Middletown, Ohio, could spend almost twice that this year on naloxone alone. Naloxone, which y'all know is a drug that can instantly reverse the effects of an opioid overdose. Administration officials said that the broader national emergency declaration was unnecessary because the government can clear some hurdles through lower level action. So the Department of Health and Human Services expect to issue guidance soon, emphasizing that healthcare providers can communicate with the families of overdose victims' situations without running afoul of health privacy laws. HHS has also approved waivers to some regulations in 4 states, giving them the flexibility that a national emergency could have provided. Now, New Jersey Governor and the real life-size Humpty Dumpty Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, Christie, who chairs the President Opioid Commission, there's a lot of that going on in New Jersey, told USA Today that a public health emergency should put pressure on Congress to act. My view in this is that this action sends a clear signal from the president that he wants money appropriated into that fund. And it gives Congress a place to go with that money to give the administration some flexibility to use it to be able to use to deal with some of the most pressing parts of it. His top priority, getting naloxone into the hands of every first responder in the country. That will bend the curve back in terms of lives lost. Yeah, white lives. One administration official said there was no specific funding request that would accompany the emergency, and House and Senate appropriations committees said they hadn't had any discussions with the administration on it. Well, the thing, more importantly, the bottom line is, it seems like he's trying to go ahead and shift money from people who really need it to just to go ahead to fight an epidemic that only white people get affected by. This fool ain't slick by a long freaking shot. But it just goes to show that the opioid epidemic among white people is running rampant, very rampant. But see, that's what's constantly going ahead and taking them out. Now on a serious note, when I say the majority of the people who's affected by this are white people, because they the ones who do the opioid, heroin, crystal meth, all that shit. But closer to home here, as I show you, give me a minute, let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, I was trying to look for it, but I couldn't find it though. But I'm just gonna tell you, closer to home here, in neighborhood of Overtown in Miami, 10 years, which is a predominantly African American neighborhood, has been around since 1810. So that's been around a long time, and they doing gentrification over there, but not by so much. That 10-year-old boy there had died from, I guess, he played basketball and all that stuff. Never been on drugs, never been like that. It's just the fact of the matter that I guess some freak accident happened and he came across a needle or something that had heroin in it and fentanyl. And they said, the parents said he passed out when he got to the house, and 10 days later he passed away. 10 years old, you know. I just wanted to make that brief. I don't want to spend too much time on it though. That was just one of the little small casualties there of black child. But the majority of this, but see, if you ask me, I just think he's just doing this. He's basically trying to deplete funds from people like this. People who has HIV and AIDS, they don't get the funding they needed. Nobody else get the funding they needed for the emergency relief from hurricanes and stuff like that. Just so to go ahead to fight. In addition, just to ensure their survival for their demographics only. And the stupidest shit that I heard with that Kellyanne Conway said drug use knows no geographic boundaries or demographic differences, I have to disagree with her. But one thing I do partly agree, and I take a quote from New Jack City, the drug thing is not a black thing or white thing, it's a deaf thing, and deaf doesn't give a shit about color. That's true. But for her to say something like this, knows no boundaries or demographic differences, not if the ones you control in the government, you allowing the drugs to go through. You going through and let it flood into the black communities and stuff. But now it's an epidemic because white people are dying on it by the daily and continue to die on it. Oh yeah, and let's not forget them lower level white supremacists, you know, the Nazi skinheads, the alt-right idiots. A lot of them get their funding and all, get their money and all that just by dealing heroin, by dealing crystal meth. So let that sink in right there. President Cheeto. This whole thing is a joke. It's a joke, but this shit real though. Let me know what y'all think about this in the comment section, because, you know, this is one of my first. I won't speak a lot more on about this with the opioid epidemic. I know Torian Rain got it locked, and so does Lisa Cabrera, as well as Nicole's View as well, and Ray Rivera as well. And let me know what y'all think about in the comment section. Subscribe, share, click the notification bell, so when I upload new videos, you'll get them. That's it. I got to say, no more talk. I just hope this opioid epidemic, it needs to spread a lot more faster. That's all I got to say. No more talk.